Dan McDonnell, when I think back to the giddy optimism that was sloshing around the studio on March 21st after Ireland's 2-1 win over Bulgaria in the promotion relegation first leg playoff, it seems a long, long time ago. You're over in Portugal now. I know you're at the stadium in Lisbon where Ireland will be playing Portugal on Saturday night, so you're getting a first-hand look at things. What's the mood now, like in comparison to what it was like those many, many months ago?
Well, I think my mood is probably the same, Will, to be honest. I was hoping for a bit more contrition in your intro there. Um, Look, I mean, experience just conditions you to disappointment with this gig. So, I mean, I think sometimes it's because um, I think maybe I'm not casting. You have a lot going on in your sporting life, and you have a lot of sporting interests. So you dip into the international team after a break, and maybe your muscle memory of it is sort of skewed by sort of just this is years since I've seen anything like this or whatever. I'm sort of thinking, but anyway, yeah. I must admit, I think I did say in that show. I will say that I said, come September, I think I will feel more optimistic than I did at the time. I didn't think Ireland were particularly good in those Bulgaria games, um, but it was a step in the right direction. For all I can say, I feel the same. I still thought that last month would have gone better. I definitely thought that we'd see a little bit more, and I didn't envisage a complete capitulation in Yerevan. So it's probably actually maybe I'm feeling a bit, bit even more gloomy. But yeah, you always have this thing with Ireland that the good performance comes when you least expect it. But that optimism is based on it's intangibles. It's not actually based on some tactical reason or some forum of players or something we've seen in the recent months. I think that's the problem. We're almost just relying on some kind of vibe again. It's like traditionally Ireland can do well in these type of games, so they'll probably do well in this game, even though there is nothing in the two games last month to suggest that they will. So we're relying on an even more thin version of hope
And what,
at the moment.
yeah, and what would you say? Like, what's the atmosphere like among, say, Heimir, sorry, and the players? Obviously, when the Armenia game went so pear-shaped, the reaction was substantial. Like, it was being heralded as one of the lowest moments in the history of the national team, which is saying a lot considering some of the days we've had in the last couple of years. Like, what kind of front are they putting up? Is the Armenia game really what you think they're targeting deep down? Is this game just kind of a one to get over it to the really must-win game on Tuesday, or are they kind of, I suppose, slowly trying to rebuild themselves and maybe try to nick something properly on Saturday? What's the focus, do you think?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it's a 6 game group, so can you really afford to be in a situation where you're already looking past one game to the next? Yet that could be the most pragmatic way of looking at it. What I found strange today is that we're here in Portugal. We're actually watching training at the moment. Um, Heimir has decided again in a sort of a act of charity. It's a nice sunny day, so instead of being kicked out after 15 minutes, we're allowed to watch the whole session. He's good at the comms. But there is a sense that the whole conversation earlier was still about Armenia as opposed to about Portugal. No one really is talking in the press conference about, with the exception of Evan Ferguson, being asked something about Ronaldo. No one's like, okay, how do you face this threat, or how do you deal with this? Or it's very much what happened last month. What happened? And what does this say about the confidence of the group? And it's like the hangover from that lingers. So even the message is very much, well, we had a conversation on Tuesday about Armenia, as though it was like some sort of niggling issue in a relationship that they needed to get out on the table and discuss. So it's sort of that's the unusual aspect of it, that it feels like the entire mood of the campaign has been shaped by that event, rather than there being this singular focus on match to match, and what are we going to do here? And of course, look at that. Maybe a lot of that is just press conference words, right? And how we analyse press conferences. And I'm sure internally there's a big focus on the Portugal game. But I think the fear for me sometimes would be that, like, the mood around a game can seep into account, in the sense that there is a sense that, well, this game almost maybe it just doesn't matter too much because it's about a pride restoral mission on Tuesday. But it's probably the wrong way to be approaching it. I mean, Ireland are still in the campaign. I know all the stats and all the logic, and suggest that it's a long shot, but also a third of the campaign is over. There's still 2/3 to go. So here you have to be believing in some way you can turn it around, as far-fetched as that may seem in the moment.
It sounds like, is there a raucous like tannoy being belted out there? It sounds like there's like someone like kind of coming in over it.
No, it's a sort of a drill, a passing drill at the moment, where I think that's Damien Doyle, the fitness coach, just barking out instructions. But no, nothing particularly unusual about it. But there's like 3 or 4 different groups pinging diagonal crosses to each other, diagonals across the pitch, and chances being taken. So maybe a prep for what we can expect tomorrow. The big diag.
Ronan wants to know: are there any stepovers? Can we see? That was one of the highlights of the Bulgaria, and that was what was getting me off my feet back in March.
Well, look, I can't remember. I'm just waiting for reeling in the years, and I presume I'll see it there. That's where I'm going to see it.
In terms of what changes would you expect to see to the team that played against Armenia?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, some of them have been taken out of his hands. I mean, Jason Knight isn't here. There's obviously issues with sort of 1 or 2 other players in terms of either. I know Matt Doherty actually didn't play in Armenia, but he was sort of integral to the group last time round. I mean, Killian Phillips come on, he's not in the squad, so there's just natural sort of personnel changes. Look, I think the big thing here, and it's been spoken about in the prelims and spoken about today, that John Egan and Seamus Coleman are back. And Gary Breen was sort of making the point that what's the point in bringing them back if they're not going to play, in the sense that you're bringing back seniority and experience, but is that to be around the hotel or is it to be around the pitch? Because I suppose the issue with Armenia, well, one of the many issues with Armenia, and probably with the first half against Hungary as well, which was terrible too, is probably the problem-solving issues, like that when things are going badly, there's no one to say, okay, let's just take stock of the situation here. Let's have a little fake injury to kill time, or whatever you do to sort of take stock of the situation, to recognise the distances between the blocks of the team. And I suppose it is good to have people like that around the hotel and around the group, but I think probably there's a sense that you're going to need them on the pitch. So I'd be shocked if we didn't see at least one of them start, and maybe both of them. Now, I do take on board what you say, and Heimir sort of touched on it a little bit today, that the second game of a double header has been a problem. And was there an element of fatigue that also they put so much into the Hungary game that they were a little bit goosed when they played Armenia? Do you want the valiant, heroic defeat here that drains the energy levels to the point that you're not ready for Tuesday? So Troy Parrott is back and he's ahead of schedule, but I'd imagine someone like him might be held back for a second game. But I suppose that's a long-winded way of answering your question. I think there will be changes, but it's possibly more a case of, will they do a different formation as well, and is there a sense of going back to the back 3 or the back 5 that the last time Ireland played Portugal, they played really, really well. They have shown, and a lot of these players, like Coleman and Egan, played that night. Some of these players were involved too, that maybe they can. Even the first half against England was quite promising. Maybe that was Nathan Collins in midfield, of course. Would he go down that road again? There are a couple of the questions to consider.
And there was a friendly in the meantime, wasn't there? I think I watched it on my honeymoon, actually. And was that in Faro? Was that 2024?
That was in Aviro. That was when John O'Shea was. Whether he was auditioning for the job or not will be disputed now, because of course Heimir was lined up. That was. Now look, in fairness, I wouldn't read too much into that, but that was they were well and truly taken apart in that game, and that did extinguish any hope that O'Shea was going to get the job permanently.
What are you looking at towards, say, the midfield battle? It's an area Portugal are so strong. I know, the Vitinha, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva. Ireland's midfield really struggled in Armenia, and traditionally, maybe in the last couple of years, it hasn't obviously been an area of strength for the team. Like, is that one area you'd be quite concerned, or what way will Heimir go about it, do you think?
Yeah, of course he'd be concerned. I mean, he has to go with numbers. Like, he has to go with probably a proper 3, and I suppose within whatever formation you play, if they were for some reason to switch to a back three again, well then you can play three in the middle with that. If you play with a back four, you can still play with three in the middle. I mean, I think notionally they were doing that in Armenia with Jack Taylor, but his positions on the pitch would suggest that wasn't the case at all, and he was stuck in no man's land. Again, there's an element of Jason Malumbi being brought back in. He is that aggressive, sort of tenacious player. You've got Josh Cullen. Like, if that Nathan Collins fact is there, that point is there, would there be any temptation to put him into the middle? But I think the problem is here, and Heimir has alluded to that, and it's something I do agree with him on, that there is probably much of a muchness between a lot of the players, that there isn't sometimes you'll have a squad where there's like tiers in the squad between, you know, your top tier players and your fringe players, and there's a sort of a hierarchy there. It's not really that defined in that department, and that's why he's bringing in people. He's bringing Killian Phillips in. This is a great, honest fella, but would have surprised a lot of people. All of a sudden, he was sort of parachuted in and would have been ahead of Malumbi last month. You know, Will Smallbone is back in the mix as well this time around, but it almost feels like there isn't like a massive difference between the attributes of some of these players. Yes, Malumbi has got a certain, you know what you're going to get from Malumbi, a bit of more aggression, and maybe some of the better Irish displays in recent years where they've been looking for a reaction after a bad result. Someone like Malumbi coming in, the Scotland game springs to mind in Dublin, that maybe you see it's a Cullen and Malumbi and Smallbone as a three, or it's a sort of a Collins thing, which strikes me as a curveball. But if he's going to put John Egan in the side, then what are you going to do with Collins and O'Shea in that eventuality, I suppose?
Yeah, some of the selection quandaries for Heimir to consider. From a Portuguese perspective, like, they play Ireland Saturday, they have Hungary at home then on Tuesday. Obviously, Hungary, the bigger game for them. They have beaten them 3-2 away already, so like they've kind of done maybe the harder part of that double header. But is there, like, do we think, are Portugal going to go full strength, like, or is there any notion that Martinez might say, actually, you know, our bigger game is Tuesday, it's only Ireland, maybe I'll rest a couple of guys, and could that be a way into the game potentially for Ireland? They traditionally, like, I know Ronaldo wants to play every single game and rack up his total, so I'm assuming he might still feature.
Can't see it. Well, I mean, yeah, maybe. Look, they have the strength that they can probably do that without it actually being, you know, a rotational thing. Like, for them, I mean, they've got 6 points. They just want to drive on and get qualified as soon as possible. So I don't think there's a distinction between the two games for them. I suppose bigger, it's more like maybe tougher game is Tuesday, but I don't think it's any bigger, because bigger would suggest that they're involved in a head-to-head with with Hungary to win the group. The fact they've gone there and won, I don't think that would be their mentality. I think, like, their mentality would be to just get qualified as soon as possible. So, you know, if they just go and win this game tomorrow, it just makes Tuesday easier in that respect. So, no, I'd imagine we'll see them go as strong as they probably can and just get the 3 points done. And if there's any scope for looking at Tuesday, it's maybe just how they use their subs. But they're like, their mentality in this group, I think obviously if they drop points against Hungary last month, the scenario you're talking about in some ways could be a realistic one. But now I think they're just going to drive on and hope that results go in such a way that they're qualified after 4 or 5 games, which is very possible.
Yeah, and I suppose there's a kind of game within the game here, because goal difference could be crucial. So, like, you know, will Ireland in some ways just look to take their medicine, potentially dig in, and if they lose 1-0, at least they kind of live to fight another day? Like, Portugal won, was it 5 or 6-0 away to Armenia? So, like, when they cut loose, they can really cut loose. And if that result befalls Ireland, then it's a really, really long way back, because you're looking at probably having to beat them in the Aviva then, which looks, you know, obviously a real long shot. So, like, is part of, you know, could that be part of the game plan, just to kind of accept that a win is very, very, very unlikely, and let's just try to limit damage and get out of here with the goal difference that's not too ugly?
Yeah, look, I think fortunately enough, I would say the game plan is more likely to align with that mission anyway. Like, I think the game plan is going to be around containment, which A, is going to be about getting a result, but B, it helps with the goal difference point of view. I'm watching them here in a 11v11 game to see if I can get any hints. I'll come back to you on that in a second. but But yeah, I'm watching Nathan Collins in the middle, Jake O'Brien to the right, and is that uh, yeah, try, nah, maybe not this set of teams, but I'd be surprised if they were that open in front of us. But sorry, to go back to the point, the only thing with the goal difference thing is though, like that's based on a scenario where Ireland are 3 points behind Hungary, going to Hungary looking to beat them. But if things are to go Ireland's way this month, that obviously involves Portugal beating Hungary, Ireland beating Armenia, and then I guess you're assuming Hungary are going to beat Armenia at home. It'd be nice if they drop points, but I think realistically you have to expect that they're going to beat Armenia at home. So actually, in that scenario, it's just a draw next month against Portugal that would give you the chance to go and win in the last game of the group. So the goal difference thing is based on a real negative scenario where Ireland are losing to Portugal next month as well. In which case, the goal difference is likely not to be that good in the first place because of how many games you've lost. So it's a relevant point, but I guess like the extreme optimism here, and I'm not quite feeling it, but the extreme optimism is that it's a 4-point mission next month, and that Portugal are hopefully already through, so that when they come to Dublin, a little bit like the last time they came to Dublin, and Ireland did get a 0-0 draw at probably the best run of games under Stephen Kenny, that sort of 7-game unbeaten run, it was in the middle of it, that you could do something like that to then at least go to Hungary with a chance of winning the game, which is obviously a slightly different challenge, but that dream is there. But maybe the goal difference thing isn't as big or as live as maybe it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, well, on March 21st, I didn't think I'd be asking you about limiting kind of the defeat for goal difference. I was hoping for a more optimistic pathway to at least a playoff. Are you gleaning anything from watching the guys train? Like, are you seeing positivity? Are you seeing an energy? Like, are you seeing a team just going through the motions? Like, is there anything to be gleaned from looking at them at the moment?
Yeah, the thing is, I think this is probably why people are so disappointed that, look, I don't. I think a lot of people were aiming their ire at the players after Armenia, and almost I saw some fans and some angry stuff suggesting, "Oh, they don't care." Like, I completely disagree with that. I think there is a desire to do something. I think there's a nice energy around the group, but I think maybe the fear is that at times are they just too nice. Like you watch training, and yeah, it's buzzy and it seems fine, but obviously you watch the team and they're obviously missing some kind of edge, some kind of nastiness, some kind of ruthlessness. And I think you can watch training and go, geez, everything looks to be a good energy there today. And that may be true, but obviously they just struggle to convert that and bring that to the table when it really matters. So, I think, and this is the thing, like, I mean, all the messages around the time Stephen Kenny was there is everyone coming out, oh, geez, the young lads are coming out very buzzy as well. And you almost feel, do they need a bit of tension in the camp sometimes, to stir some kind of reaction? Like, this is the thing in the Yerevan where players, like, I notice sometimes these things again can seem a bit old school, but was anyone bollocking anyone? It was almost like they were paralyzed with this sense of, oh no, this is happening. So yeah, I can't say anything more than you ever watch him training, and it all seems sprightly enough and so on, but that doesn't seem to translate. I am trying to look and see what we've got here. We do have Collins and O'Brien beside each other. We've got Festi on the right side of that team, and yeah, Ryan Manning on the left side, and Kelleher's in goals for that team. But it's hard to really be.
And he tried Parrott anywhere?
Parrott is involved. Yeah, no, I think they have said today that that Parrott, like, he's further along than they thought. He is with the Collins team, all right. He is on that side, but I think they thought he wouldn't be involved in this game. But he's further along than they envisaged. But I don't know. We've had a couple of times under Heimir where we've had a little bit of access, and it hasn't necessarily correlated to the team, so you can't really huge amount into it. It could be scenario based stuff, not like the days when Trapattoni would just come in and just name the team the day before the game, or as he did before the Euros famously, name the team for the first game against Croatia around 10 days before it. It's a little bit more unpredictable now, but yeah, they've Paddy McCarthy has just stopped this training game and is in the middle now. He's having a few words with players.
Why were you given the access? Like it'd be great to have that sort of access all the time, just to have a bit of an insight into how things are developing.
The access today,
yeah,
it's a goodwill gesture. I think. I mean, look, things are bad.
Get you on side.
As I said, the comms have been good. So it's a nice day. Let people watch. Maybe show them. Maybe in a way, like show people that we're doing the work here. They're not just we don't go out and everyone like. This was the thing today. Sorry, from the press conference, like that. Heimir was asked about Finn Azaz's comments. During the week, where Finn Azaz says maybe there was a lack of understanding of the challenge we were going to face in Armenia, which were strong enough words, or certainly as much as you read into words in press conferences. And Heimir was a little bit, well, he shouldn't have felt that way. And his message was maybe some players need things more visually than you might realise. That I'm paraphrasing what he was saying here, but it was almost like he was saying, well, we did tell them. Maybe they weren't listening. Maybe they weren't paying attention enough. Maybe they need more time to process our messages. Which, look, that could be interpreted in different ways. As washing your hands of a degree of responsibility for it. But I don't know. Maybe we're just being allowed to watch, say, the show that they're not just sort of sitting around doing nothing when we head out, which I don't think anyone suspected. But sorry, I'm a small bit distracted here as we speak, just trying to figure out, can we learn anything from this? Because John Egan is on the other side. I'm looking to see where Seamus Coleman is. Seamus Coleman is on the side with Collins and Jake O'Brien. So maybe it is possible where...
This is live journalism. This is live journalism. This is journalism in action.
This is what we do. We just watch and process, and the horrible moment when you realise you don't recognise a player from a distance as well as you think you should.
Okay, Dan, give a stab at your starting team now, having seen this. Let's see if it matches up.
But hang on, I'm looking here. Will Ferry is at left back. I just can't see Will Ferry from Dundee United getting parachuted in to a starting team. So I don't know. But Coleman is at right side of that team. In terms of a starting team, I don't know. I mean, I think probably...
You have unfettered access there. I'm assuming you'll get it nailed to the man.
There was an issue. There was an issue in Luxembourg, where we were given this, and then people sort of definitively ran that this was the starting team, and I was like, I'm not sure about that, and it wasn't, but it was close to it. It definitely was close to it. So, yeah, I listen, obviously Kelleher will play. I kind of wonder: will we see Coleman? Will we see, Collins and Egan? Will he possibly play Dara O'Shea at left back? And then you're into like the Cullen, Malumbi, Smallbone. And then in terms of the front, the other three players, I still think he probably does play Ferguson, even though he didn't play at the weekend. I sort of feel like he needs to be on the pitch now. And maybe is it something like Festi on one side and Azaz a little bit narrow on the left side, or Manning. Sorry, Manning would definitely play. Apologies. So I wonder would he play Manning in that left side midfield role. But I will say that the prediction of I'm a little bit thrown by Heimir saying today, acknowledging that the second game of the window has been poor and that maybe there has been an element of either fatigue or a drop off. So he has to hold something back for Tuesday. He has to hold a couple of players back for Tuesday. So maybe what you might assume to be the strongest team actually just isn't the strongest team tomorrow at all.
Yeah. Okay, just before we wrap up, build a case for Ireland getting a positive result if you can. What's the scenario that plays out? How does the game unfold? Is it literally just Ireland digging in, getting a 0-0 and kind of getting a bit fortunate with some good Kelleher saves and Portugal dominating? Or is there any kind of game script you can envisage when Ireland come out of here with something positive?
Yeah, look, I think it is that. I mean, I've watched a lot of Portugal the last couple of years and tournaments, and it's at a higher level, right? That you have the Ronaldo factor that sometimes you argue like his goal record is incredible, but sometimes it can make them a little bit easier to predict what's going to happen against them. And like Ireland and Faro managed the game very well until unfortunately he scored 2 late headers in injury time. But the scenario is that Ireland managed to have a good shape, probably similar to the first half against England, regardless of whether it's Collins in midfield or not. But yeah, that they're compact, that the only slight fear is that if you give up the wide areas to Portugal, but then they're going to get crosses into the box, and then there's a danger that Ronaldo does something. But I think you almost have to gamble that your big defenders can manage those situations, and that you are just sort of compact enough and you hang in there. I don't see Ireland in a 2-all, like a free-flowing 2-all, like scoring twice in a basketball game. If they're going to get a result, it has to be something like that, where the Portugal can sometimes, for all their ability, they can end up becoming a little bit predictable if they're met with sort of a stern resistance, and you can frustrate them for a period of time. But look, I'm not optimistic. They're a team that's become better even in qualifying in recent years. Portugal become a little bit more ruthless. Maybe it's in the tournaments where they've had some of those difficult games against Slovenia and games like that. But I sort of feel they will win. Yeah, I can't build that strong case, but the way to do it is the way you've sort of discussed. I don't think there's any other way other than like somehow nicking a goal early and some efficient counter attack, and that changes the tone of the game and it becomes a little bit erratic. But it's hard to see that.
Any final thoughts on Jim Gavin?
Nothing to add. No, nothing to add. I enjoyed the Fianna Fáil TD saying at the parliamentary meeting that they viewed his presidency as a chance to unite the unstoppable force of GEA, Fianna Fáil, the Defence Forces, and Dublin. I think was that what it was. If only life
what a coalition!
Easy, I mean, if only life was that easy. I mean, I'd say a couple of months ago we would have been thinking that maybe Jim Gavin could sort out the Irish football team. We can't say that now, really, can we? But yeah, let him go on with his life. It's that moment has passed as probably. I mean, more likely to be unveiling in the years than Ireland Bulgaria, though. I would say.
Well, Ireland Portugal might make it. You never know. That we can always hope. Dan, thanks so much for joining me. Enjoy the game in Lisbon, and we'll chat to you again next week.
Thanks, Will.